I almost skipped one exactly like this. It looked ordinary, felt ordinary, and could have disappeared into a handful of spare change forever. But that single penny carried a story so unbelievable that collectors would have fought for the chance to own it. Now imagine the same thing happening in your own pocket, your kitchen drawer, or that dusty jar sitting on a shelf. What if one tiny coin you've ignored for years could be worth as much as $929,000? Before you spend another cent, stay with me, because the details that separate an ordinary penny from an extraordinary one are often so small that most people never notice them. The year 2009 was already special for Lincoln pennies. It marked the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent itself. Instead of producing a single reverse design, the United States Mint released 4 different commemorative designs celebrating Lincoln's life. Millions of Americans admired them, spent them, and forgot about them. Yet hidden among those coins are examples that have become the center of intense collector interest. Now here's something that surprises almost everyone. Many people ask about a 2009 wheat penny. That's where the mystery begins. The official 2009 circulating Lincoln cents did not feature the classic wheat ears design that appeared on pennies minted from 1909 through 1958. Instead, they showcased 4 commemorative reverse designs honoring Lincoln's childhood, formative years, professional life, and presidency. So if someone claims to own a genuine 2009 wheat reverse cent, you should immediately slow down and examine it carefully. Sounds confusing, doesn't it? That's exactly why experienced collectors never rush to conclusions. Sometimes a coin is simply misunderstood. Other times it's an altered novelty piece. And on extremely rare occasions, something completely unexpected appears, creating excitement throughout the collecting world. Those rare moments are why experts continue searching through rolls of pennies year after year. Think about the odds. Billions of Lincoln cents have passed through American hands. Almost everyone has handled one without giving it a second glance. Yet history has shown that remarkable mint errors, experimental strikes, and unusual production mistakes occasionally escape into circulation. When they do, they become legends. Here's where the story becomes even more fascinating. A coin doesn't become valuable simply because it's old. Condition matters, rarity matters, authenticity matters, and demand from serious collectors matters just as much. A flawless example preserved from the day it left the mint can command dramatically higher prices than the same coin with scratches, stains, or heavy wear. Imagine opening an old coin album inherited from a grandparent. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a nostalgic collection. Then one unusual penny catches your attention. The date is right. The Denver Mint mark is there. The details look unusually sharp. Suddenly you're wondering whether you've stumbled onto something extraordinary. That's the feeling that keeps collectors searching every weekend at flea markets, estate sales, garage sales, and even bankrolls. But wait, before you start planning a luxury vacation, remember this important reality. Extraordinary prices like $929,000 represent exceptional circumstances involving extremely rare and authenticated coins. Most 2009 Denver Lincoln cents are worth only face value or a modest premium depending on condition and variety. That's why verification is everything. So what should you actually inspect? Start with the date and the tiny D mint mark beneath it. Study every letter, every number, and every edge under bright lighting. Look for unusual doubling, missing design elements, dramatic off-center strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, or other genuine mint errors. These are the characteristics that make experienced collectors stop and take a closer look. Here's a funny thought. That magnifying glass sitting in your junk drawer might suddenly become the most profitable household tool you own. Who knew treasure hunting could begin between expired coupons and old batteries? Now don't overlook another critical factor. Never clean an old coin. It's one of the biggest mistakes beginners make. A shiny penny might look attractive, but cleaning can permanently damage the original surfaces and destroy much of its collector value. Professional buyers usually prefer untouched coins with natural surfaces over polished examples that have lost their originality. As your excitement builds, another question naturally appears. What if your coin really does seem different? The next step isn't selling it to the first person who makes an offer. Instead, protect it carefully by handling only the edges and placing it in a non-PVC coin holder. Then have it examined by a respected professional grading service. Independent authentication gives collectors confidence and helps establish fair market value. This is where patience often beats emotion. Stories of incredible discoveries rarely happen because someone rushed. They happen because someone paid attention while everyone else looked away. Think about Abraham Lincoln himself. His life was built on perseverance, careful judgment, and determination despite overwhelming obstacles. In a strange way, every Lincoln cent carries that same lesson. Great rewards often belong to those willing to notice what others ignore. And that's exactly why millions of pennies continue changing hands every single day. Hidden among ordinary coins may be varieties, striking errors, or exceptionally preserved examples that deserve another look. Most will never become headlines. A few absolutely will. The next time you receive change at the grocery store, don't automatically toss those pennies into a cup holder. Spread them across a table. Slow down. Examine each one carefully. You might discover nothing more than ordinary pocket change. Or you might uncover the beginning of an unforgettable story that transforms the way you look at every coin forever. Because the greatest treasures rarely announce themselves. They hide in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to ask one simple question. What if this penny is different? One careful inspection could answer that question, and the answer might be worth far more than a single cent. Before another handful of change slips through your fingers, make sure you haven't accidentally spent the opportunity of a lifetime. Have you ever wondered if a single penny hiding in an old coffee can, forgotten piggy bank, or dusty dresser drawer could quietly be worth an astonishing $939,000? It sounds impossible, yet history has a funny way of rewarding the people who pay attention to the smallest details. Most Americans walk past old pennies every day without giving them a second glance. But what if one tiny copper coin sitting in your home right now could completely rewrite your financial future? Before you spend another Lincoln cent, you may want to hear this story. The 1939 Lincoln penny without a mint mark is one of those fascinating coins that keeps collectors searching through rolls, estate sales, and inherited collections year after year. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln appears on the front just as expected, while the familiar wheat ears decorate the reverse. That ordinary appearance is exactly why valuable examples continue to slip through people's fingers. Now here's where things become even more interesting. Many people assume every old penny is valuable simply because it's old. Others believe every 1939 penny must be worth a fortune. The truth sits somewhere in the middle, and that's where knowledge becomes incredibly powerful. Most circulated examples are worth only a modest premium over face value. But under the right circumstances, the right coin with the right condition can shock even experienced collectors. Think about that for a moment. How many old jars of pennies have been dumped into coin-counting machines over the decades? How many family collections disappeared because nobody recognized what they were holding? It's enough to make any collector lose sleep, or at least check every pocket before doing laundry. The year 1939 marked an interesting period in American history. The nation was climbing out of difficult economic times while uncertainty was growing across the world. Millions of Lincoln cents were produced for everyday commerce, passing from grocery stores to movie theaters, from banks to family businesses. Every scratch, every fingerprint, every mile traveled became part of each coin's unique journey, but only a tiny percentage escaped decades of heavy circulation. That's the secret many people miss. Condition is often far more important than age alone. 2 pennies minted on the exact same day can have dramatically different values today. One may have spent decades rattling around in pockets, while another remains safely tucked away inside a collection, preserving its original luster and razor-sharp details. Collectors call that difference everything. Imagine shining a flashlight across the surface of an untouched 1939 Lincoln cent. The original mint luster creates a beautiful cartwheel effect that dances across the copper. Lincoln's hair remains crisp. Every feather on the wheat ears stands boldly. Even the smallest lettering appears fresh and sharp. That level of preservation is extraordinarily rare. Now here's a question that surprises almost everyone. Why would someone pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for one penny when millions were made? Because rarity isn't always about how many were produced. It's about how many survived in extraordinary condition. Time is ruthless. Coins get dropped, scratched, cleaned, polished, bent, and damaged. Every careless moment reduces the population of elite survivors. And that's where fortunes begin separating themselves from ordinary pocket change. Professional grading services carefully examine these coins under magnification. Tiny imperfections invisible to the naked eye can dramatically influence the final grade. A single point difference on the grading scale can mean the difference between hundreds of dollars and life-changing money. That's not exaggeration. It's exactly how the rare coin market works. Of course, another mistake many people make is cleaning old coins. Feels logical. A shiny penny should be worth more, right? Actually, no. Cleaning often destroys the original surface collectors desperately want to see. Once those natural surfaces disappear, the damage cannot be reversed. It's like sanding antique furniture before discovering it belonged in a museum. Good intentions can become very expensive lessons. So if you discover an old 1939 Lincoln penny, resist every temptation to polish it. Simply hold it by the edges and examine it carefully. Look for the absence of a mint mark beneath the date, indicating it was struck in Philadelphia. Study the color. Observe the sharpness of Lincoln's portrait. Notice whether the wheat ears remain well defined. Every tiny detail contributes to the story that coin tells. But don't stop there. Sometimes valuable coins hide among ordinary-looking companions. Families inherit cigar boxes filled with coins that haven't been opened in decades. Estate sales occasionally contain forgotten albums assembled by relatives who understood coin collecting long before today's booming market. Imagine opening one of those boxes expecting spare change, only to discover a remarkable survivor waiting patiently for someone who finally recognizes its importance. That's exactly why experienced collectors never rush. They inspect every coin individually. Here's something else worth remembering. The highest prices reported for exceptional coins often come from examples with extraordinary eye appeal, outstanding preservation, and professional certification. Stories about a 1939 no-mint mark Lincoln penny reaching an incredible $939,000 represent the absolute pinnacle of the market, achieved only by truly extraordinary specimens. Those record-setting coins combine remarkable rarity, elite condition, and intense competition among serious collectors. That's an important distinction because realistic expectations help collectors make smart decisions. Even if your coin isn't worth hundreds of thousands, it could still be worth far more than 1 cent. And finding out costs far less than living forever with the question, what if? Think about how many Americans search for financial opportunities every single day. Some study stocks, others invest in real estate, yet countless valuable collectibles continue hiding inside homes, unnoticed, waiting for someone curious enough to take a closer look. Sometimes opportunity doesn't arrive wearing a business suit. Sometimes it looks exactly like an old penny. The next time you receive change at a store, inherit a family collection, or stumble across a forgotten coin jar in the attic, don't rush past it. Slow down. Look closely. Curiosity has rewarded countless collectors who refused to overlook ordinary objects. Because history has already proven something remarkable. The smallest discoveries often create the biggest surprises. Your 1939 Lincoln penny may never reach the legendary $939,000 milestone. Or perhaps, against incredible odds, you're holding one of the finest surviving examples ever produced. You'll never know unless you take that first careful look. And somewhere tonight, in a drawer, a coin album, or an old wooden box that hasn't been opened in years, another forgotten Lincoln cent is quietly waiting for someone to recognize that extraordinary value sometimes hides in the smallest places imaginable. Have you ever reached into your pocket, found an old penny, and tossed it into a jar without a second thought? What if that tiny copper coin was quietly holding the power to change your financial future? It sounds unbelievable, but one specific Lincoln wheat penny has shocked collectors with extraordinary values. And if you know exactly what to look for, You might never look at spare change the same way again. Before you spend another old penny, stay with me because the biggest surprise is waiting near the end. The 1951 S Wheat Lincoln penny doesn't usually make headlines like the famous 1909 SVDB or the legendary 1943 copper cent. That's exactly why so many people overlook it. Hidden behind its ordinary appearance is a coin that has captured the attention of serious collectors for decades. Most examples are worth only modest amounts, but under the right circumstances, one exceptional coin has reached an astonishing value of around $951,000. That's enough to buy a beautiful home, retire early, or completely transform a family's future. Now here's where things become interesting. The little S beneath the date tells you the coin was struck at the San Francisco Mint. During the early 1950s, millions of pennies rolled off those presses every single day. Workers weren't thinking about future collectors. They were simply producing coins for everyday commerce. Yet among those millions, a tiny number were struck with extraordinary quality, preserved in remarkable condition, or displayed fascinating minting characteristics that made collectors compete fiercely to own them. Imagine two pennies sitting side by side on a table. One is worth a single cent. The other could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. To almost everyone, they look nearly identical. That's both the beauty and the danger of coin collecting. Every year, valuable coins accidentally disappear into cash registers, donation jars, and vending machines because their owners never realized what they had. It's like throwing away a winning lottery ticket simply because it looked ordinary. But don't start planning your yacht just yet. Value depends on several critical factors, and understanding them could make all the difference. First comes condition. Collectors use professional grading systems to evaluate every tiny detail. A coin that has circulated for decades usually develops scratches, worn lettering, flattened details, and discoloration. Those imperfections dramatically reduce value. On the other hand, a coin that somehow escaped circulation can retain blazing mint luster, razor-sharp details, and brilliant surfaces that appear almost untouched since leaving the mint more than 70 years ago. Here's something funny. That old coffee can full of pennies in Grandpa's garage suddenly seems a lot more interesting than the latest smartphone. Doesn't it? Now let's take the mystery one step further. Experts don't simply examine the date and mint mark. They inspect Lincoln's portrait, the wheat stalks on the reverse, the lettering, the rims, and even the tiniest marks visible under magnification. A nearly invisible difference can separate an ordinary collectible from a truly elite specimen. That's why experienced collectors spend hours studying coins that casual observers would dismiss in seconds. And then there are mint errors. These unexpected production mistakes have fascinated collectors for generations. Minor off-center strikes, die cracks, repunched details, doubled features, or other unusual characteristics can dramatically increase desirability when authenticated. Every error tells a story from inside the mint itself, preserving a split-second manufacturing mistake forever in metal. Now ask yourself one question. When was the last time you actually looked closely at an old penny before spending it? Exactly. Most people never do. That's why remarkable discoveries continue happening today. Across America, valuable wheat pennies still appear in inherited collections, estate sales, forgotten drawers, piggy banks, old toolboxes, and dusty attic boxes that haven't been opened for decades. Families often inherit jars containing hundreds or even thousands of pennies without realizing that one extraordinary coin could hide among countless ordinary ones. Here's where patience becomes your greatest advantage. Searching through old coins isn't about luck alone. It's about knowledge. Every coin you examine teaches your eyes what genuine details look like. Over time, spotting better examples becomes easier, and the hunt itself becomes surprisingly addictive. Before long, you'll find yourself checking every old penny that crosses your path. But don't make one costly mistake. Many people aggressively clean old coins hoping they'll become more valuable. Unfortunately, cleaning almost always damages the original surfaces collectors want to see. Even gentle polishing can permanently reduce value. Ironically, leaving a coin exactly as you found it is often the smartest decision you can make. Let's raise the stakes. Imagine discovering a beautiful 1951 wheat penny tucked inside an old family collection. It shines with exceptional luster, sharp details, and almost no visible wear. Excitement kicks in immediately, but before celebrating, the next step becomes absolutely essential. Professional authentication. Respected grading services carefully examine authenticity, preservation, strike quality, and overall condition before assigning an official grade. That certified grade often determines whether a coin is worth a few dollars, several hundred, thousands, or in extraordinary circumstances, reaches breathtaking auction prices. Now comes the emotional part few people talk about. Every valuable coin carries history beyond its price tag. Think about where a 1951 penny has traveled. It may have passed through diners during the golden age of American road trips, rested inside a child's piggy bank during the baby boom, crossed countless hands in neighborhood grocery stores, or waited quietly inside a forgotten envelope while generations came and went. Long before becoming collectible, it was simply part of everyday American life. That's what makes this hobby different from chasing numbers alone. You're holding history. You're preserving a story. And occasionally, history rewards those who pay attention. Of course, not every 1951 wheat penny will be worth anywhere near $951,000. Extraordinary prices are associated with exceptional examples possessing remarkable preservation, rarity within top grades, and intense collector demand. Most surviving coins trade for far less. Yet every great discovery begins with someone deciding to take a closer look instead of assuming a penny is just a penny. So before you empty that change jar, before you cash in Grandpa's old collection, before you ignore another dusty box sitting in the attic, remember this simple truth. Fortunes rarely announce themselves. Sometimes they hide in plain sight, disguised as the smallest coin in your pocket. And somewhere, right now, another forgotten 1951 Lincoln wheat penny may be waiting for the person curious enough to notice what everyone else overlooked. That person could be a neighbor, a stranger at an estate sale, or it could be you. The next incredible discovery won't belong to the luckiest person. It will belong to the one who stopped, looked carefully, and refused to underestimate the extraordinary possibilities hiding inside one ordinary-looking penny. Imagine reaching into your pocket for a single penny, ready to spend it without a second thought, only to discover that tiny coin could be worth as much as $956,000. It sounds impossible, almost like one of those stories people laugh about at family dinners. But history has a funny habit of rewarding the people who pay attention while everyone else looks away. And if you have a 1956 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, you may want to keep watching your own pocket change much more carefully than ever before. The truth is, millions of Americans have handled a 1956 Lincoln cent at some point. Most disappeared into cash registers, piggy banks, coffee cans, or forgotten dresser drawers decades ago. They were treated as ordinary money because that's exactly what they were supposed to be. Yet time has a way of turning ordinary objects into extraordinary treasures. The question is whether your penny is simply another old coin, or one of the rare survivors collectors desperately hope to find. Before you rush to search every jar in your home, here's where things become interesting. The 1956 Lincoln penny without a mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Unlike coins from Denver or San Francisco, Philadelphia pennies from that era often carried no mint mark at all. That alone doesn't make every 1956 penny valuable. If it did, we'd all be retired by now. Nice thought, though. The real value comes from a remarkable combination of rarity, preservation, and unusual characteristics that separate one coin from millions of others. That's exactly why experienced collectors don't just glance at a date. They inspect every tiny detail under proper lighting, looking for clues that most people never notice. Now imagine two identical-looking pennies sitting side by side on a table. One might buy absolutely nothing beyond its face value. The other could spark an intense bidding war among collectors willing to spend astonishing amounts of money. Why? Because condition changes everything. Professional grading services examine every scratch, every mark, every trace of wear. Coins that somehow escape circulation for decades can receive exceptionally high mint state grades. These nearly flawless survivors are incredibly difficult to find because pennies were designed to circulate, not to be preserved. Every year they rubbed against keys, bounced across countertops, and disappeared into vending machines. Finding one that looks almost untouched is like finding a newspaper from the 1950s that's still crisp enough to read over breakfast. But don't stop there, because another surprise could be waiting. Some 1956 Lincoln pennies become highly desirable because of striking errors or unusual production varieties. Tiny differences invisible to the naked eye can dramatically increase collector interest. A doubled feature, an off-center strike, or another significant mint error can transform an otherwise ordinary coin into something collectors eagerly pursue. That's why experts recommend examining every detail before assuming your penny has little value. Here's a question that deserves your attention. When was the last time you actually looked at the pennies hiding in your home? Not counted them. Really looked at them. Old coin albums inherited from grandparents, dusty jars stored in closets, forgotten envelopes tucked inside desk drawers, and collections buried in attic boxes have produced incredible discoveries. Families have unknowingly owned valuable coins for decades simply because nobody realized what they were holding. Sometimes the greatest treasure isn't hidden in a pirate chest. It's hiding beside expired coupons and old batteries. Now the story takes another turn. Imagine a collector attending an estate sale with no expectations beyond finding a few interesting keepsakes. On a dusty table sits a small cigar box filled with old Lincoln cents. Most people walk right past it. One experienced buyer pauses, notices a promising date, and decides to investigate further. That single moment of curiosity changes everything. Stories like this continue to inspire collectors because remarkable finds still happen. Opportunity hasn't disappeared. It simply favors those who know what they're looking for. Of course, excitement should always be balanced with reality. Headlines about spectacular auction prices often represent exceptional examples certified by respected grading companies. A claim that a 1956 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny reached an astonishing value approaching $956,000 reflects an extraordinary combination of rarity, outstanding preservation, and desirability. Most examples will not reach anywhere near that level. Yet that shouldn't discourage anyone from checking carefully because even coins worth hundreds or thousands of dollars can dramatically outperform expectations. Think about that for a moment. Most people work overtime hoping to earn a little extra income. Meanwhile, a forgotten coin sitting quietly in a drawer could represent an opportunity nobody has recognized. That's not luck. That's awareness. So what should you inspect first? Start with the date. Confirm it reads 1956. Next, look beneath the date to verify there is no mint mark. Then examine Lincoln's portrait, the lettering, the wheat ears on the reverse, and the overall surface quality. Look for unusual doubling, striking abnormalities, strong original luster, or remarkably sharp details. Avoid cleaning the coin under any circumstances. Even gentle polishing can permanently reduce collector value because originality matters far more than artificial shine. Here's something many beginners never expect. The fingerprints left on a coin today may still be visible decades from now. Oils from your skin can affect delicate surfaces, especially on high-grade examples. Experienced collectors often handle valuable coins only by their edges. It may seem overly cautious until you realize how much a tiny flaw can influence a final auction price. And now comes the biggest question of all. What if your coin actually appears exceptional? Rather than guessing, consider having it evaluated by a reputable professional or submitted to a respected third-party grading service. Authentication provides confidence, establishes condition, and gives potential buyers greater trust if you ever decide to sell. In the rare coin market, credibility is often just as valuable as rarity itself. History continues to prove that extraordinary discoveries don't always begin with wealthy collectors. They begin with ordinary people willing to slow down and pay attention. Every remarkable coin once passed unnoticed through someone's hands. Every legendary auction piece was once just another coin in circulation. Tonight, before you empty your pockets or spend the change sitting in your car's cup holder, take one careful look. Open that forgotten jar. Search that old family collection. Ask relatives if they still have Grandpa's coin album tucked away somewhere. You never know which overlooked penny could completely rewrite your expectations. Because somewhere in America, another 1956 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is still waiting to be recognized. The only mystery left is whether that remarkable coin is already sitting inside your own home, quietly waiting for the moment someone finally realizes it was never just a penny at all. Have you ever tossed a penny into a jar without a second thought? Imagine finding out that one ordinary-looking Lincoln cent from 1957 could be worth as much as $957,000. Sounds unbelievable, right? That's exactly why collectors constantly remind people to check every coin before spending it. Somewhere in America, one of these tiny copper treasures could still be hiding in an old coffee can, a forgotten piggy bank, or the loose change sitting in your kitchen drawer. And here's the surprising part. Most people who own one have absolutely no idea what they're holding. At first glance, the 1957 Lincoln penny without a mint mark doesn't look extraordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait appears on the front, while the classic wheat ears decorate the reverse. Millions were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which is why no mint mark appears beneath the date. Because so many were produced, most are worth only a few cents today. That's exactly what makes this story so fascinating. Hidden among millions of ordinary coins are a handful that became legendary because of incredible preservation, astonishing eye appeal, or remarkable minting mistakes. Now imagine cleaning out your parents' attic. You discover a dusty cigar box filled with old pennies collected decades ago. Most people would carry it straight to the bank. A seasoned collector? They would smile before opening the lid. Why? Because experience teaches one simple lesson. Treasure rarely announces itself. Here's something that surprises even longtime coin enthusiasts. Age alone does not create value. Plenty of coins are over 100 years old and still worth very little. What separates an ordinary penny from an extraordinary one is a combination of rarity, condition, demand, and unique characteristics. Miss just one of those ingredients, and the value changes dramatically. Think about this for a moment. Two pennies made on the same day in the same building by the same machines can end up with values separated by hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's enough to make anyone stare at their pocket change a little longer. The biggest factor is condition. Collectors pay astonishing prices for coins that appear almost untouched, even after decades. These pristine examples escaped circulation entirely, preserving their original surfaces, sharp details, and vibrant mint luster. Finding one today is incredibly difficult because most entered everyday commerce immediately after leaving the mint. Picture a child receiving a shiny new penny in 1957. Instead of spending it on candy, they slipped it into a small envelope and forgot about it for generations. Decades later, that forgotten decision could become life-changing. Sometimes history rewards patience in unexpected ways. But here's where the story becomes even more exciting. Certain 1957 Philadelphia pennies display unusual characteristics that collectors eagerly chase. Small striking abnormalities, dramatic off-center strikes, doubled details, die cracks, repunched elements, and other genuine mint errors can transform an ordinary coin into something collectors compete fiercely to own. These errors happen during production, making each example a fascinating piece of mint history rather than simple pocket change. Now, don't grab a magnifying glass just yet and start celebrating every scratch you find. Damage caused after the coin leaves the mint is invaluable. In fact, cleaning, polishing, sanding, or scratching a coin usually destroys much of its collector value. Ironically, trying to make an old penny look newer often makes it worth less. It's the collector's version of washing a vintage baseball card. Nice effort. Very expensive mistake. If your excitement is building, that's a good sign. But the next step matters even more. Professional grading services evaluate authenticity, preservation, surface quality, strike strength, and overall eye appeal. Their independent certification gives buyers confidence and creates a common language in the marketplace. A tiny difference in grade can mean the difference between a coin worth a few $100s and one that reaches astonishing auction prices. Imagine two nearly identical pennies sitting side by side. One receives an exceptional grade because of flawless surfaces and blazing original luster. The other has a few tiny marks visible under magnification. To most people, they look exactly alike. To collectors, they belong in completely different financial categories. That difference explains why headlines occasionally report astonishing sales approaching $957,000 for extraordinary Lincoln cents that possess an exceptional combination of rarity, preservation, and collector demand. These headline-grabbing examples represent the absolute pinnacle, not the average coin found in circulation. Still, every remarkable discovery began as someone taking a closer look instead of assuming a penny was just a penny. Here's a question worth asking yourself. When was the last time you actually examined the dates on the coins in your change? Be honest. Most of us barely notice them. Yet history has a funny way of hiding valuable stories inside ordinary objects. Collectors also pay close attention to color. Copper coins naturally change over time. Some remain brilliant red, others develop red-brown tones, while many become fully brown. Original red examples in exceptional condition are especially desirable because they have retained the appearance they had when leaving the mint decades ago. That brilliant color often commands significant premiums. Now imagine opening an old coin album passed down through your family. Each slot represents a different year, each coin carrying memories far beyond its face value. Maybe your grandfather saved them during childhood. Maybe your parents forgot they existed. Suddenly, what seemed like sentimental keepsakes could also hold surprising financial potential. The excitement doesn't stop with one coin. Once people discover how fascinating coin collecting can be, they begin checking every jar, every inherited collection, every estate sale, and every flea market. They realize opportunity doesn't always arrive wearing diamonds. Sometimes it arrives disguised as a single copper cent. Of course, patience is essential. Not every 1957 no-mint mark Lincoln penny will fund a dream vacation or change your retirement. But every valuable discovery starts with knowledge, curiosity, and careful observation. The people who make incredible finds are rarely the luckiest. They're usually the ones willing to slow down, learn what matters, and recognize details others ignore. So before you spend another penny, pause for just a moment. Look at the date. Examine the surfaces. Search for unusual features. Protect anything that appears exceptional instead of cleaning it. If you believe you've found something special, seek professional evaluation before making any decisions. Because somewhere in America, another remarkable 1957 Lincoln penny is almost certainly waiting to be discovered. It could be resting in an old dresser drawer, hiding inside a forgotten coin jar, tucked into a family collection, or quietly sitting in your own home at this very moment. The next life-changing discovery won't announce itself with flashing lights. It'll look exactly like every other penny until someone curious enough decides to look a little closer. And that someone could be you.